Hello friends, I'm Kayla. For many years, I did a video series called Rereading My Childhood Favorites, where I went from 3rd grade all the way to 12th and a little bit beyond and a little bit before, and read my favorites from every given year of my life, shared things, my favorite movies as well, favorite foods, favorite classes, all that type of stuff, various memories. The series has recently ended and now it's time to read your favorites. I'm really excited about this series because it could be just forever spanning. There are so many people and so many books and so many memories. So I already have like 30 books squirreled away in the TBR closet that I'm really excited to get to someday. And it was so hard choosing what to start with. So it really is totally at random. Ever since I think maybe even the first episode of the series, I asked you what your childhood favorites were, and I've been collecting your data. It's not about reading like the ones that were the most popular, the most mentioned. It really is random, and it's ones that maybe I felt like I was missing out on, or at least that's especially the focus of this episode 1. So first up is The Little Prince. I'm sure you can hear my water boiling. I'm just about to make lunch. I've got The Little Prince, which is very familiar to me. I've heard about it a lot. I still don't even know what it is though. I know it's had an adaptation or multiple. It's actually on my Scratch Off Classics poster, so that'll be exciting. The next one I grabbed is The Boxcar Children because this is just so nostalgic for me, and it's a book series that I've seen my entire life everywhere. I think I even owned multiple books in the series, but I've never read it. I don't even know what it is. I guess these children are orphaned, abandoned, they're runaways, they get on a train. I don't know what happens from there, but I've always wanted to check that out. Another classic children's series that I never got into was The Bailey School Kids. This is not the edition that I would love to have. Like, I love these covers. I think they're so fun. And since I'm in my vampire era, the first one is called Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots. They're all themed like werewolves don't do this, mermaids don't do this. And I think it feels like the Magic School Bus to me, but more sinister. Then I had to pick The Outsiders because this is something that I've mentioned multiple times that every single one of my friends read in high school. It was a class book. Every time I've ever talked to anybody about their favorite class read, they said The Outsiders, and it's one of the only ones that I never read. It was never an option, but I know everyone else has read it, especially like the other high school in my city, and I was always jealous that other people were reading it, but clearly not enough to pick it up on my own time. And the last one that I'm also going to check out the movie after reading it, because everybody said when I told them I was reading The Princess Bride, said that the movie is way better. So I will be reading and watching back to back The Princess Bride by William Goldman. So once I decide what I'm actually reading, and once I have eaten my lunch, I'll get back to you on that. The sun is setting. I'm here for an update. I took Liam for a walk. Why do I always make him sound like a dog? We went for a walk and I thought, why don't I pick one of these as an audiobook? And obviously, like, the only one that makes sense is The Princess Bride because it's long. So tell me why I go to Scribd and I find the audiobook and it says it's only 2.5 hours? But this is 450 pages. Granted, it is pocket-sized, so there's less words on a page than a traditional one. And then I flipped it open and I found that the first 30 pages are like some kind of introduction that weren't in the audiobook. But still, like, I'm confused. I'm wondering if the audiobook is abridged. And normally, always, I'm listening to the fully unabridged audiobook. I will always seek out the full version of something. I think I'm okay listening to that version because obviously it's the preferred version. So I got half an hour into that. We met a girl named Buttercup, somebody named Humperdinck, and people want to marry her and she's just like the prettiest girl ever. And the way this is written is kind of fun because, well, I don't even know how to explain it. I would have to find an example of what I was listening to. I really should have read the synopsis because I have no idea what this book is about. But there is a character named Inigo, and I think that's like a name that I know certain quotes from. So I guess that character is from this book and I never knew that. Like, I am Inigo Montoya, prepare to die or something like that. So the vibe is like direct to reader and you get to know things that the characters don't know. So it'll say like Buttercup was in a crowd of people at the very beginning. She is like becoming queen and they're building this relationship that's kind of fake because they're both going to benefit in a certain way. And it's talking about her in the crowd and them judging her qualities of being queen. And of course there were some more who were frankly jealous. Very few of them hated her. and only 3 of them were planning to murder her. And it's funny because listening to it, it sounded like maybe it's the narrator's voice or maybe it is the vibe, but it sounds very funny and like tongue-in-cheek. But just reading the words, it seems so much more serious. Teetering on the verge of war, the reluctant Princess Buttercup is devastated by the loss of her true love, kidnapped by a mercenary and his henchmen, rescued by a pirate, forced to marry Prince Humperdinck, and rescued once again by the very crew who absconded with her in the first place. In the course of this dazzling adventure, she'll meet Vizzini, the criminal philosopher who will do anything for a bag of gold, Fezzik, the gentle giant, Inigo, the Spaniard who steals, thirsts for revenge, and Count Rugen, the evil mastermind behind it all. That's the guy that like found her at her family home and was talking to them about how their cows are thriving, and then he was like, this girl is so beautiful, we need to snatch her up before somebody else does. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. It's pretty quick, so I guess I'll get through it in the next couple hours. All right, I finished my read of The Princess Bride, and I don't really have that many thoughts about it. I spent one chapter reading along with the audiobook to see what was missing and what was there. So I'll give you an example. This whole page was in the audiobook, and then only this chunk and like a couple lines in between. Next page, completely gone. Next page, like half there, completely gone again. And then it was like 4 straight pages of it completely missing. So it was really interesting doing that because I read the chapter full out with my eyes. I paused the audiobook, read the part that was missing, continued the audiobook, and I just think it's such a skill, whoever made the abridged version. They really were able to pull out the pieces that were important, and it was just plot. The whole audiobook was plot, which also I would just watch the movie, and the movie is obviously just plot. You're not hearing the inner thoughts of somebody for 4 pages. It gives you, like the audiobook gave 1 paragraph of somebody thinking about something, and then it didn't waste 4 pages like describing further what they were thinking. So the plot of this book is we have this girl and she falls in love with this boy, and he like leaves and she thinks that he's dead, and then she ends up planning to get married to this prince even though she doesn't love him. And then there are all of these adventures where people are kidnapping her to kill her, kidnapping her to bring her somewhere. She's trying to get back to this boy, but people want her back to the prince, and then some people want to kill her. And you're equally following, well, I think you're more so following the people who are after her, who are kidnapping her, who have different plans with her. So Inigo, it's like he gets knocked unconscious, and it says, when Inigo regained consciousness, it was still night on the cliffs of insanity. And that's what the audiobook said. And then the book goes further and says like, his arms were tired, he's blinking, looking around, looking for the man in black. He was dizzy when he stood up. Inigo knew he wasn't a great fencer, and he was questioning his abilities and all of this stuff that isn't necessary for like having a fun time reading it. And so I think the audiobook was perfectly done. I got the grasp of the story. And I also feel like anything that people were telling me that they hated about The Princess Bride and then the movie was so much better, I probably missed, because there was really nothing in the audiobook experience that I had that made me dislike the book, that did anything negative. The only thing I would say is we really didn't get much of Buttercup. Like, it really wasn't her story. She obviously does get what she wants in the end, but you're not really following her and all of the thoughts that she's having. She doesn't feel like the main character of her own story. And I guess I would almost say that about the movie. The movie was so good. I had Rob watch the first half with me. I think he's watched it before is what he was saying. And the beginning was so funny. It's campy and it's silly, and I really, really liked it. The sword fighting scene, like the grins on the guys' faces, it was just so fun to watch. And now I'm on the IMDb and looking up all of like the trivia of the movie and all of the fun facts, and it's just delightful. There are most definitely some things that are out of date, that if the movie was redone current day, I imagine certain things would be changed. But I just had a really lovely time. So I didn't technically read the entirety of the book. So if it is your favorite thing, I support that. I love that. I agree. I think it's good even though I didn't read it all. And speaking of princesses, tomorrow is my watch along with the channel members, and we're watching The Princess Diaries. I'm not reading the book, but I know everybody loves the movie, so I'm gonna watch the movie. If there's anything else that was your favorite as a child outside of books, like movies and TV shows you want me to check out that you think I haven't seen, then I can definitely do that in future installments. And otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. I just finished my Princess Diaries watch party. I think I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. It was cute. It was fun. Considering all of like the weird movies we've watched together and all of the questionable things, this one was pretty safe. There wasn't a lot going on that was like uncomfortable or weird. It was mostly just nostalgic for everybody. There was a few of us who were watching it for the first time and we seemed to like it equally. And the 5 out of 5s went to the people who were watching it for like the 10th time, the 20th time, and they just love it so much. And I think that's great. As soon as it ended, I realized there was a second one that has Chris Pine. And honestly, this makes me, well, I want to watch it first of all, but read the books. I think I want to read the book now, which isn't what I thought would happen. I'm just so curious the differences between the two, and I could just look it up, but I think I'm gonna read it. So I put in a hold in my library. Hopefully it comes in the next couple days. My biggest questions are, does Mia actually go to Genovia in the book? Because she doesn't in the first movie, and I just think that's so strange that she's this 15-year-old girl who gets told that she's a princess and she's just like this awkward teenager. That's the plot of the movie. And when she becomes royalty, everybody treats her differently and she starts to like abandon her friends and not care for everything the same way. Her priorities have to shift and she feels like seen and beautiful for the first time by a lot of people. And then naturally the arc of the story is that she realizes the people who loved her from the beginning are the ones that she should like give her attention to, like her best friend and the boy. But along the way she has to have a lot of awkward encounters and like the mean girls treating her nicely. But she doesn't go to Genovia and she's gonna be in charge of the entire country. So that's what I want to know in the book. Does she go to Genovia? Does she learn more things about Genovia, like the political situation, like her actual responsibilities as the future queen? Because the movie made sense and it was cute and fun. I'm assuming the book's going to be the same thing because I think it's younger YA. I know a lot of girls were reading it at my age when I should have been into it, but I was not into princess things. But having watched the movie now, it really isn't that princessy. It is just like real life and just going through trials and tribulations of high school as well as this new royal opportunity. My next question is the mean girl also like performing at a beach party in the book, or was that just written specifically for Mandy Moore so she could do that and further her music career? My third question is the relationship that happens in the movie in the book. Is it there and is it better? Because I feel like we were missing, not that it was supposed to be a romance, but there is a little bit of a love triangle situation, if you will. And I wanted a little, like one more scene with the boy that she's gonna end up with. I wanted a little more chemistry. I wanted a little bit more evidence of why they're supposed to be together. I wanted to earn it more. And so now I'm just curious if the book is gonna do that. I don't even know how many books are in the series, but I'm gonna read it. But first, while we wait for that to arrive, today it's time for the Bailey School Kids Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots. It was originally published in 1990, so let's spend the next 10 minutes reading this. All right, I'm halfway through. Here's a play-by-play of what's happened so far. We have this group of children. They had this teacher. This teacher got tired of all the drama and the harassment from her students, and she quit. A new teacher comes in. The principal introduces her. The principal they call an egg with 2 legs. An egg with 2 legs? Mr. Davis did not deserve that. Anyway, this is Mrs. Jeepers, of course. And she looks like a vampire and she has a thing around her neck and it glows green. She moves into this spooky Victorian house and they move all her stuff in and the kids are like, that's a coffin. This is Eddie. He's the class bully. He calls everyone a sissy. The word sissy is on like every single page. He's mean to the teacher, he's mean to the kids. He'll like spit at you, spit gum at you, spit balls. On page 35, we have our 2 friends on the cover and they're gonna sneak into her house to see if it's actually a coffin. Her name is Mrs. Jeepers, but they haven't seen her husband and they think maybe he's a vampire in the basement. I only have one thing to say. If this is another Bunnicula situation where I go the whole book thinking that this woman is a vampire and then it turns out everyone just thought she was a vampire and she turns out to just be a regular lady, I'll riot. Because Bunnicula is supposed to be a vampire rabbit and he wasn't actually a vampire and I was betrayed. So if this book series is actually just all of these like mermaids don't do this and leprechauns don't do this and whatever, and none of them are actually leprechauns and mermaids and witches and vampires, like what even is the series. I thought it was like these kids surviving the creatures that always enter their lives. But if it's actually just like these kids making assumptions about every different looking adult that they encounter, I don't know about this. Okay. Is she a vampire or not? I don't think she's a vampire. The ending of this was so weird. So she comes back to class and Eddie is harassing her and she takes him out into the hallway alone and then comes back and the students say, like, he comes back white as a ghost and looks so scared. And they go, "What did she do to you, Eddie?" And he says, "I know one thing, I'll never make her mad again." Like, what happened in the hallway? Why are you taking one kid out into the hallway? What did you say? What did you do? But they go, no kid ever made her mad again. Her necklace never glowed again. And they go, I can't believe we thought she was a vampire. After all, Liza agreed, vampires don't wear polka dots. Listen, I know this is for children. I shouldn't be this invested in Mrs. Jeepers being a vampire. But I don't think it even answered my question if she's a vampire. I don't think she is. I just think she scared this kid. But like, why are you scaring the kid? And they went into her basement to find the coffin and like they couldn't even open the box. I got no answers. I'm very disappointed. I was waiting for it to be like a short story where you get like a moment at the end, the little shock factor, the little reveal, and it can be a little bit ambiguous. But this one was too ambiguous. Are they all gonna be like this? They're just gonna see this man who looks like Santa and they're gonna like think that he's Santa, and at the end they're gonna be like, no, can't be Santa. Hundreds of these stories. I don't know that I would have liked this when I was like 8 years old. And if I did like it, I probably wouldn't read any more because they're obviously all gonna be the same. If you loved the series, you probably don't love it now, so I'm not hurting your feelings. Okay, bye. Look at this lighting.
Oh, look at this lighting.
It's sunset. It's beautiful. It's pink. We just went for a swim. I'm reading about orphan children. So this is set in the 40s. It was written in the 40s. And they have nowhere to live. And they find this boxcar. I thought it was going to be like a boxcar that they got into and then the train drove away and they had all these adventures on the train. But no, it's like the ground around has grown in. The rail is not... The track is not used anymore, and they just decided to live in it. And then they find this dog. I'm halfway through and I found somebody's bookmark and it's a bag of tea. So good for them. I hope it was delicious. I guess it's fine so far. Like nothing has really happened and it's really repetitive, not in plot, but in dialogue. So somebody would be like, we need to go to the dump to find a spoon. And then they'll go to the dump and be like, we found a spoon. And then someone will be like, let's use the spoon. And then they'll make dinner and be like, we can use that spoon from the dump. So that's pretty much the plot so far. I don't know what these noises are. I'm so sorry. I was just getting ready for the day and I realized that I didn't tell you a review. I didn't like finish talking about the Boxcar Children, and it was like the quickest read, so it looks like it took me a couple days to get through it, you know? I think this is definitely something that I would have liked if I read it at the age that a lot of you did. It's like a survival kind of story. It's this family that comes together and they like work together and they do a lot of problem solving, and it was really fun. Something that I wasn't anticipating is that this is like a 100-book series apparently, and it becomes like a mystery series, which totally makes sense because in the first book, basically these 4 kids get orphaned and the only thing that they can do from there is like live on their own or go into like foster care essentially, but they know that their littlest brother like wouldn't get to go with them because he was too small. And so they decide to find this boxcar and they find this dog and they like make a life for themselves. And the oldest brother like goes to this random farm nearby and he's like, do you have any work for me? Like, can I do some gardening for you? He ends up picking some cherries and getting some money for them to afford like to eat some bread every day. So it's those options, or their grandfather is out looking for them. He's like putting up posters. He's like, these children are missing. I need to find them. And they're terrified of him, or terrified at the idea of him. They don't know him. And so the repetition definitely comes in with that. they're like constantly saying what they need to do to stay away from their grandfather, and like anything that could possibly get misconstrued as having any other purpose, the author makes sure to say, remember, because we're trying to stay away from grandfather. And that's fine. Like, obviously the age range that this is for, it is to drive home like what the goal of the book is. But it's like every turn they're like, I can't do that because grandfather would find me. I can't use my real name in this scenario because grandfather will find me. And then eventually, guess what? The grandfather finds them. I thought that this would be much longer into the series once I realized it was a 100-book series. I was like, okay, well, they're gonna be like in this train car, like traveling around the country or whatever, and eventually their grandfather is gonna find them, and then they're gonna have to run away from him, and it's just like this constant adventure story, I guess is what I thought the series was. But at the end of the first book, their grandfather finds them, and he's like this super nice guy, and he surprises them once he brings them into his home, and he's like, I'm gonna take care of you and love you and give you whatever you need. He surprises them by getting their boxcar transported to his like house, and it's just in their yard. And at the end, they just have this beautiful garden and their boxcar gets to stay there. I don't know if they're gonna live in it or just play in it or what, but like, I'm so happy for these 4 children. I feel like this is for the kids who read the Dollengangers or whatever it was called. And they're like 2 siblings and they're really close in age, and questionable things are starting to happen, and they have to stay in their grandmother's attic, and they have 2 younger siblings to take care of. This one is like, no, it's just safe. Like, these 2 siblings are taking care of their younger siblings, and they're kind and they're loving, and their grandfather's actually a good person, and they get everything they need in the end. And so after this book and one more, I think, all of the titles I see are called like the mystery of this, the mystery of that. So I guess these kids aren't living in the boxcar after the first book, and they're just like solving all of these little mysteries. Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew vibes. I can definitely see why people were into this one, and the series as a whole. Very warm, and started out sad but turned out to be really nice. Next, I'm gonna get into The Little Prince. This is by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, or not, translated to English by Catherine Woods. This is the most translated book of all time, like the most languages. And I have no idea what it's about, besides being about a little prince. Couldn't tell you even like the slightest idea of what the story actually is. So I'm excited to get into it and find out why you all love it so much, why the world loves it so much. Now, I know I just said I have no idea what this book is about, but it's at the same time, somehow, not what I was expecting. I guess I was thinking like the Princess and the Pea kind of a story, where you're just following like a little prince in a little castle and living his little life. But we have met like our main character, who's not the little prince, and he like falls out of the sky and starts talking to this little prince that he meets in the desert, and then the little prince starts telling him stories. So it's kind of this surrealist, like hallucination, maybe. I don't really know, but I know that people say that you will get something out of it different every time you read it, or like if you read it as a child, reading it as an adult, you gain something differently from it. And I think that's really interesting, because this seems to be, to me, written in a series of what I would call like parables. So the little prince is going through the experiences that he has had, and it's like he went to the 6th planet, and then on the 5th day he went and met this king, and he's just like traveling around space, going to different places, meeting different people, and like learning something from each of those people and the way that they interact with the world. So like the one I just read, he goes and he meets this geographer, the 6th planet he's going to visit, and he calls him an explorer, and the explorer is like, I'm actually a geographer and I don't get to go on the big adventures, I just sit here and like I write it all down. And so he's asking the little prince about the world that he came from, and the little prince is sharing like interesting things to him. He's like, we have volcanoes and we have flowers, and the geographer's like, I don't want to know about your flowers because those don't last forever. We have no need as a society to like learn about them. And so you could glean many lessons from that. But then the story's over. It's just like 3 pages, this little experience. And it feels like introduction to philosophy for children, and it would be interesting to like read this to Liam, and then in certain circumstances you'd be like, well, remember when the little prince did this and this and this? Don't you think that like taught you patience, and that in this moment you have learned, like, maybe if you wait, like, good things will come to you, etc. And then as an adult, it's just the takeaways feel much more clear naturally. So I'm halfway through. We're about to go to Earth, and I wonder what he's gonna learn from there. Okay, I finished it, and I just feel like every book that I've ever read where the takeaway message was live in the moment, appreciate what you have, and spend your time doing things that bring you joy. Like, this is what all of those books wish that they were. It was subtle but clear at the same time. I think you could have different interpretations of not just the takeaway message, but the ending itself. I think it has a lot to say about embracing your inner child and remembering what it was like to be joy-filled and like innocent in a way. This is like a perfect book. I love it. I think anybody could enjoy it. I get it now. And thank you to all of you for telling me that this was your favorite, because I understand you better and I read something really solid. I feel like this video is unfortunately going to go by really quickly because I don't have anything else going on in it. I'm unfortunately dealing with some like medical things this week that's making it not of interest to me and my health to like go out and about. But I think I'm actually going to move on to another book today, because like, what else am I up to? Actually, I will run out to the library because that's not too like taxing, and I'll grab the Princess Diaries because I did see that my hold came in for that. So we'll do that. Maybe grab lunch. Okay, I got groceries, I got lunch, I got the Princess Diaries, and also waiting there for me was a romancy book that I'm not even going to talk about because I'm probably not going to read it. I should have just given it right back. I'm not in my right mind today. And then the Wonder State was there that I don't even remember what it is, but I saw it on some kind of list. And so I ordered it and it came. This is what I do. Oh my God, how pretty. I just did, my last vlog was all about the library books that I put holds on and then didn't read. And look, we've got another one. I was going to start the Princess Diaries, but I just decided to start The Outsiders instead. And it's not quite what I was expecting. And maybe it's like what I thought that the Boxcar Children was going to give, because we have two characters, Pony Boy and, oh, what was the other kid's name? Started with a B or a J. And they just got on like a train and then jumped off because they're trying to escape something. And I have no idea what the plot even of this is. I just know that they're like greasers and there are socias, and it's like two different kind of battling groups of people, like the rich people and the not, like people from the bad side of the tracks, I guess. And they kind of like constantly are beating the shit out of each other and threatening each other. And so the book kicked off with getting to know Pony Boy and his two older brothers, and then all the people that they hang out with. And then they got into a little fight, and I thought that it was going to lead into like JT from Degrassi territory, and I was going to be crying at something horrible happening to one of the main characters right at the beginning. But, and it's in the synopsis I checked after, so one of the boys kills a boy from like the gang that was threatening them, and now they're on the run. So I have no idea what's going to happen from here, but I have heard that people say they've like cried reading this book. And so I thought that was the scene that we were just in, that I was leading that direction, but then it didn't. So now I don't know what's going to happen. Even though I have read not like retellings, but like books kind of inspired by The Outsiders. I don't think they followed the same like plot at all. I'm thinking one of them is Stay Gold by Hobley McSmith, I want to say. And I really liked that one. And I think that that book and a couple others were written partially as a response to the author S.E. Hinton, who was like outspoken about something regarding queer characters. I think people have interpreted the characters in The Outsiders as being gay or being queer or having like more than just a friendship relationship among them. And she like got like aggressive about that, and like I don't even know if it was like an interview or on Twitter or what happened. And like that's such a weird, like I understand wanting to protect your book and your plans and wanting it to be what you meant it to be, but once a book is out there in the world, like it can be interpreted in any way you want. And I can definitely see how people felt that way, especially about our two characters already, because just the way that Pony Boy speaks about other people, he's just like very loving towards other people, cares about other people, the way he describes people and their attributes. But I also think that the representation of like really strong friendship between boys is really powerful too. So I am reading it in that way, but I think you can interpret anything the way that you want. So I'm gonna go inside. It's getting a little bit hot. I'm gonna have lunch. I'm gonna read some more of The Outsiders, and then maybe I'll cry. Do you think? I spilled a smoothie on my pretty peachy shirt, so I had to change. But it's fine because the black feels much more greaser vibes. And Ponyboy's talking about how something really bad's about to happen. Like, he can just feel it. And they're about to have a rumble and something just happened. The boys got back together. I know all of the cast from the movie, but I don't know who's who. And I like envisioning them for myself right now, but I do have the movie pulled up so I can watch that as soon as I'm done. So let's read together. Not out loud. I'm also gonna try not to fall asleep. I haven't had coffee in a week. Hello, I finished the book. I also watched the movie. My mind has not really been in the vlog. There is a forest fire burning nearby, and we're hoping to not get evacuated, but we're packing a little bit as if we could be. And now I'm here to update you on the book, which was fantastic. This is so good. And then I watched the movie and it was equally fantastic. And I definitely, once again, just like the other book I read today, see where all of you are coming from. I see your love for it, especially if you read a bunch of like assigned books in school that weren't good. I think this is a solid, not everyone's gonna love it obviously, but I think it's really powerful. It's just full of like teenage boys having to take on far more responsibility and witnessing so many different situations far beyond their maturity. And I think all of you are so lucky that you got to have a group discussion about it, and you can have more takeaways from it just by what you glean from others. But I think just the idea of this group of boys is so interesting, and like why Ponyboy was chosen as the main character is something interesting to think about. Most of this group wants to be seen for far more than just where they come from and what they lack. But at the same time, they're like proud of where they come from, and they come together, they work together, they create this group and this bond with how like dedicated they are to each other because they come from such a similar place and they are treated in a certain way by like the richer people, and their bond is tested multiple times in such a short amount of pages. And what I would say, especially with this short amount of pages and like when the time that this was published, I would say this is like Ponyboy himself is one of the most vivid characters that I have read in that category. I'm sure this would be beneficial to people who are reading it like in school when it's assigned, the kids who can relate to these characters as well as the kids who can't and who have had more shelter and who've never had to think about the circumstances, like poverty and parent loss and abuse and death that these children are experiencing and witnessing. And with that said, like the language at no point gets gratuitous or too graphic. It's completely age appropriate. And I just think this is an excellent piece of art that she created. Apparently she wrote it when she was like 15 years old. Did you read The Outsiders?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember anything about it?
Seagull and Ponyboy.
Did you watch the movie?
Yeah.
I just watched the movie today.
I can watch it in class.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, we read the book first and then watched the movie right after in grade, that was portable
Like
English
10?
grade 8.
Grade 8?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's Liam this year.
Don't say that.
Oh God.
Welcome.
Hello. My eyes are burning.
That's all I have to say. Thank you all for being here. And now I'm going to go read my princessy book and I'll tell you about that tomorrow. Hello, it's time for our final check-in. I'm so sorry. The low effort, low energy vibe is here. It has been a long and tense last like 48, 72 hours. If you don't know, my city's on fire. This is the closest any summer wildfire has been to our house, and we have just been waiting for days to see if we're gonna go on evacuation alert. My parents are currently in the evacuation zone. A lot of people have been displaced, a lot of people have lost their homes, and it is still completely out of control. There's a lot of water bombers out today, and it's just been like tough going to bed the last couple days, hoping that we don't have to evacuate in the middle of the night. We have our like to-go bags, which is funny because in my to-go bag, all I have for books, the only books that I'm thinking like if my house burns down, I need to survive, are my 2 book club books. I have A Twisted Love Story and Leash in there. So at least you know I'm dedicated to the live show discussions. And I know everyone would be completely cool and encouraging of me putting those off due to everything that's going on. And of course, if we get evacuated, like I'm not thinking about the live shows, and I will postpone those. Right now, we might be in the clear, which is good because then we can focus on like what other people need in the community. There's a lot of places offering a lot of support, which is great because it just brings back memories from like the 2003 fires when we did get evacuated, and like the whole street above ours completely burnt down, as well as thousands of other homes. Anyway, I did slowly make my way through the Princess Diaries these last couple days since I saw you. So my review of this, I don't need to give like a proper review. Oh, I grabbed this because I just think it's fun that I read 2 princessy stories when I feel like this is a word I definitely would have avoided picking up books that had princess in the title in high school. And also, I guess I should have mentioned at the beginning that when I say childhood, I mean like any time before the age of like 18, like in any part of schooling. So I know some of these are not, they're totally different age ranges here. You can read this when you're 7, you can read this when you're 17. But what's more interesting to me than the book itself is like the differences, because I love looking at adaptations and seeing what has been changed. The biggest thing right from the very first page is this is set in New York, it's set in Manhattan, and the movie was very clearly set in San Francisco. I feel like it's probably not just the first book, but like other movies, they take like the first 2 or 3 books in a series and make it into the movie. That's kind of what this feels like, because we didn't get the full arc of her and Michael's relationship. But then I also looked at future books in the series and the synopsis, and even in like the last book, Michael is in the synopsis, so clearly she like ends up with him. So I'm certain that we do get more of their romance, and he is just like was everybody's book boyfriend when they read this originally. So no, we didn't get too much more of him, but he is a slightly different character in the book. Like he's a little more popular and traditionally good looking than the movie wants us to think. There was in fact no performance and no beach party, which makes sense because of the setting being on a completely different coast. And Lana is even kind of a different feeling character, and there isn't just like a school full of people kind of out to get Mia. The royal situation also feels a little bit different. At the end of the book, she doesn't have this big speech and like leaves for Genovia, but maybe that happens later in the series when she gets this moment to really take her place as the princess. And the biggest thing that's different that I wasn't expecting is her dad is not dead in the book. He, in fact, like sees her regularly. She goes to Genovia regularly. She doesn't in this book, but it's said that like every year she spends one of her spring or summer breaks in Genovia. And I feel like that makes so much more sense as a story than her just being torn away from everything that she's known at the end of the movie. But everything I think makes sense for the movie. It's all more dramatized. It's more cinematic feeling, obviously. And I think I would have liked the book better than the movie if I read it in the time when I was the target audience. Right now, I'm liking them pretty equally. We do need to go scratch off the Little Prince from my poster, so that's fun. So let's find it. Oh, it's right up there. Let me look over there. Oh, look outside. It's apocalyptic. Oh, it's purple. And thank you so much to everyone who's checked in the last couple days. I'm so sorry if I haven't gotten back to you in your messages on Instagram. I really appreciate you checking in. And I really liked reading all of your favorites this week. I would say the most beneficial to read, like if you're an adult, are the ones, I mean, I guess you would expect. I would say The Outsiders, if you never checked it out, totally do that, though I might have spoiled it a bit for you. The Little Prince is definitely worth the read. And I think The Princess Bride, the abridged version. I could take or leave these ones, but it was fun getting into them, and I will see you again very soon with the next video.